We are back once again with a player character interview. This time we're going to be talking to Craig about his character, and this will conclude the video series for the interviews. I just want to point out that we're going to be filming me on screen. You're going to be hearing a disembodied voice coming off from over there. That will be Craig, because he has declined to wanting to be on camera. So obviously I'm not going to make him, and so you still get to have the interview with him about his cleric. So let's do this. Your character, what's it called?
Caractacus Potts.
Caractacus Potts. Where did you get that naming idea?
Anybody that knows their children television or children's film history knows that Caractacus Potts is the crazy inventor that created Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
What is his concept?
Just that he has a tendency to be a tinkerer. So he likes technology and likes to fiddle with things and create his own things. And
that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because he's a bit of a, because like you say there, but he's a cleric, so he's a bit of like a mixed up class, isn't he? In that way, he's like a
I didn't
identity crisis.
Yeah, kind of. I didn't want to go just for the basic, bog standard cleric character, although that would have been interesting enough. Personally, I like tinkering with things, and I thought that it would be interesting to have that in a rather zealous character, I suppose.
What sort of role do you think he plays in the group as a character?
I'm guessing his role is evolving, apart from his insistence on using large, blunt items that tend to hurt up quite a lot. I'm kind of edging towards developing him to be more the wordy person, so he's going to be into all the different languages, the different paths for law, things like that.
So scholastic.
Essentially, yeah.
Mm. It's normally said that in a lot of the heresy groups that play, that the cleric is the door opener for the upper echelons and the scum is the door opener for the lower.
Yeah, and that's quite clear in their stat balances and their available options. Almost in every single tier there are 2 or 3 different options where you can purchase, as it were, different laws or different communications, like different peer groups, things like that.
If he was to die tomorrow in game, what would you roll next?
Oh, crikey. I suppose probably a tech priest. I'd have to go from one extreme to the other, bearing in mind that I've enjoyed being quite techie with Caractacus. He's been an interesting character from that perspective.
Not a tech priest who's a zealot.
No, I think I'll stay with the core character class. I'll maybe even resurrect the Battle Sister again, possibly.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that the rest of the group are of a level now where she wouldn't be ridiculous.
They are now stronger. Yes. Yeah. I mean, his mantra is "Hammer solve everything," isn't it?
Indeed. Everybody knows that life is better with a hammer. I thought that it would be an interesting quirk to have him being a priest and just want to beat everything with a hammer.
I've noticed he's not too preachy and self-righteous either.
He'd hardly be able to be, particularly bearing in mind that he has, allegedly, latent psychic powers with technology. He was going to be a tech priest at one point and got kicked out, but because of his particular oddities, he was taken back to the monastery where he came from to become a priest. Even though he does have the latent psychic ability with machines, it only is apparent on machines that are for him.
Right.
If he fiddles with anything or creates anything for anybody else, it won't work. Similar to an orc's psychokinetic ability with their weapons. If an Imperial picks them up and uses them, they won't work.
Yeah.
They'll only work for
That's
an orc.
a stick with a twig. How was that firing bullets at me?
Yeah, it's good old orciness, but in an imperialistic way.
Yeah. Yes. So, what other RPGs have you had experience in?
Oh, crikey. I've played D&D, AD&D, Bushido, Middle-earth role-playing, Traveller, lots of them, basically.
So you are the most senior, by far, RPGer of this entire group, then, really,
I guess so, yeah. I've played quite a lot.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty cool. What was it, like first edition D&D or second?
Second.
Second.
Yeah, we played like Cthulhu, and Traveller was the first role-playing game that I
Yeah.
played, and that was probably about 17, 18 years ago, somewhere around
You started like 17 years ago. What was your last experience with roleplay, though?
there.
Before getting into Heresy with us?
Crikey. Probably Cthulhu, I think, was the last game that I actually played.
How long ago?
Again, it's probably going to be about 11, 12 years ago that I played.
Wow. So you were really out of the fold, weren't you?
Yeah, it's been a while.
How does it feel now back playing? Do you feel you've changed as a role player? Or
It was strange to get back into it again, because clearly we all lose a certain amount of confidence with a style of things if you don't do it for a while. So that was strange to get back into again. But no, it's a bit like riding a bike. Once you start doing it again, you quickly get back into the swing of it, and I think it's more about adopting the point of your character, absorbing the essence of the character and playing it true to how you particularly want to play him, or them, or her, and not deviating from that. I mean, with a lot of role-playing games, there's always a temptation to, just try this, and maybe if I just try this, and you end up like a bit like WoW, where you specify too many different things and you become too much of a jack of all trades and a master of none.
do you think you've got like much in common with him at all as a character? Do you think that you've like he's becoming more like you, or you've built some of you into him, or?
Clearly, any of us with any of our characters, there is quite a large degree of our own particular personality and foibles and fears and things that go into making a character as believable as they are. I suppose the easy answer to that is yes.
All of us role-play in different ways.
Yeah.
Some of us are more like combat focused, we want to hit things until loot falls out. We look forward to that element of the game, even though we're playing a role player. Some of us are amateur thespians. Some of us are like stealing all the limelight, or whatever other way. What kind of RPG are you and your core, do you think?
I'm a watcher more than anything, I think. I like to see how people are playing themselves, and then I'll chip in the odd quip, I think, more than anything. But again, I'll tend to stick to a theme, so I'll have an idea for the character, and that's what I'll stick with. So in the case of Caractacus, it's hammers and beating things up with hammers on a chain, which is interesting.
So you see yourself as coming along and trying to complement the group, really?
I try to, yeah. Again, with a lot of groups in the past, as you said, there's a lot of people that want the limelight, and it's important to let them to take the spotlight, as it were. Otherwise, they become stifled and they feel unappreciated and just bullied into just capitulate into whatever the rest of the group are doing. So it doesn't become an enjoyable environment for them. So they tend to slip away and do other things like WoW.
I'd had a character who, by definition, steals a spotlight, Maestro, just because he's so flamboyant. I am Maestro Raphael! And takes a dramatic pose and does the whole thing, and everyone has to listen to him suddenly.
Yeah.
So I went the opposite way this time and chose someone who's so weird.
Yeah.
That he...
It's an interesting character.
He shouldn't contribute.
I enjoy the way that you play him as well. It's good. I think mine with taking the safety off a hammer. I mean, that just the whole the prospect of a hammer having a safety button is amusing. It's more about subtlety, bearing in mind that a hammer is not subtle at all.
I stroked my hammer gently as well. That's the one we laughed at. Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, you could maybe take a look at the characters in your group then. You mentioned Caractacus there, that he's a bit weird, a bit of an unusual angle there. The way I'm playing him.
Bedrag. Paranoid. The archetypal paranoid policeman. Everybody has an angle, everybody's playing something, but nobody's playing the angle any more than Bedrag actually is playing the angle, because he's watching what you're doing and trying to find the way of getting one up on you as you're playing. Yeah. As your character is evolving, he needs to have the upper hand on you. Jix, the scum. I think it's interesting having somebody like Jez playing, because He's definitely taken role playing to the core of how role playing should be. So he has a particular style for that character, and come what may, regardless of what Padraig is going to do to find him or do otherwise, he's going to steal everything that isn't bolted down. Because that's what his character is all about.
I think he's just been waiting for something like this to come along, hasn't he?
Oh, definitely.
And then when he had the opportunity, he just grabbed it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but obviously this is just the beginning of opportunities for him as well. And even this entire group. Lots of other systems and other GMs are going to make completely different games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from an engineering background, and a common thing with engineers is if it doesn't work, hit it with a bigger hammer. So that's I've definitely brought that into him, being from a techie engineering sort of background as well, I guess, as he would be.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, I need a bigger hammer.
What doesn't he like then?
Demons. Who doesn't like demons? Well, he doesn't like demons. Nobody likes demons. And they need to be beaten with a hammer.
So that's his cleric-y bit.
Yeah.
Kicking in there.
That's absolutely, yeah. What he doesn't like... I don't know, really. I think he's a fairly easygoing cleric as he goes, in comparison to a lot of the archetypal written works of how clerics generally are.
Yeah, definitely. It's different.
So yeah, I didn't want to play him in that particular style. So yeah, he's definitely an oddball from that perspective, but that's why he has a quirk.
I've noticed that he seems to try and stick up for Kisdeen, sometimes against Padraig.
Yeah. That is more to add more dynamic to the role play, because clearly it's quite obvious the interaction between Padraig and Kisdeen, so it's interesting to play on that, and I know that it would infuriate in no end if somebody is saying that Kisdeen didn't do what he's actually caught her doing, and gives him a completely innocent aspect of it.
Jez mentioned in his interview that there was possibly some interaction in the past that maybe he's got a lot to thank Caractacus for.
Yeah. The long and the short of that answer is yes. She does owe me a lot. But then, also, from the other side of it, depending on how it plays out, I might owe her a lot as well. Or more than what is apparent.
Okay. So what is Caractacus's connection to the Inquisition? How does he find himself as an acolyte?
Because he's an oddity.
Right.
Because of the tech priest and believing more in the Emperor than the Omnissiah, and being kicked out of tech priest college, as it were, and going back to the monastery, and becoming a cleric because he has that fervent belief in the Emperor of mankind, being the saviour of us all. Mechanically,
Statistically, skills and talents wise, how have you built him up to this point?
The focus is around the hammers and the getting into close combat. Because of the backstory that I've decided for him, he has an aversion to firearms.
Right.
So as a part of that, because a lot of the combat in Dark Heresy revolves around ranged combat, he has hammers on a chain so that he can throw them. And they'll take, because he has fast reload, it'll take half an action to reload the hammers again, and then off he goes again. So he throws his hammers.
So yeah, he's treating it like it's a gun, but it goes along with his RP.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it. Yeah, so it has a short range, so it doesn't have any longer range than a pistol, but it hits with a hammer.
Yeah, I mean, what sort of stats did you find important to focus on?
Well, weapon skill more than anything. Unfortunately, initially the rolls were quite low, so his weapon skill isn't going to be the greatest. I think I've already taken 2 advances already, and he's only at about 36, so he had quite a low weapon skill initially, which is quite a shame. But clearly, ballistic skill, if he's going to throw them, but he's tending more towards not throwing them and just charging in and getting into close combat as quickly as possible.
And to that end, he's ended up quite heavily armoured now, hasn't he?
Yeah, Padraig very kindly bought me some heavier armour, particularly after one session where we was in an abandoned space, well, not so abandoned as we found out, where in his typical style of everything is fixed with a hammer, promptly went and bonked a flechette, a dark elf thingy, and almost died. In fact, he did die in the end. And had to burn a fate point to save himself.
Heavily armoured, now has Medicaid, great big hammer.
Yep.
Screams Paladin, doesn't it?
Well, there's been a
Holy faith.
Yeah, but Paladin heals only work on themselves.
Yes.
There's been a few noted times that he's been referred to as a paladin, yeah, but he's not a paladin because he's a cleric, and paladins are a completely different kettle of fish.
Although in D&D terms, a cleric's kind of paladin-like.
Well, they're kind of a bit. Yeah. It wasn't intentional. Generally, I'll shy well away from paladins. I don't particularly like them that much. I don't like playing them that much, I should say.
So, well, on that front then, seeing as how we've seen him progress into something similar to, but not a paladin, what do you conceive as the sort of skills, talents, or whatever you'll buy next in the upcoming if you've took a look at it? Or roughly if you haven't.
The next immediate purchase he's probably going to get is Swift Attack, so he hits twice with his hammers, which, bearing in mind that everybody else has ranged weapons that shoot a ridiculous amount of very powerful shells, and often is the case, he'll get into combat and everybody else has killed everything, and I'll swing my hammers a bit and frighten people, and that's generally what I do.
So how do you think the group of players gel as players?
Very well, actually. I was a little bit concerned initially, particularly with Jez not being a role player as such, or coming from a role-playing background, just playing role-playing games or like computer games. So I wasn't sure how the dynamic was going to work, but bearing in mind that we've all become really good friends, the dynamic of the group is really interesting, and it does cause some quite amusing discussions.
We have a good laugh. We physically LOL at things, but also I've noticed that some of the most enjoyable moments of the game are when things go wrong.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely.
Someone does some awful effect and just, they end up nearly dead, or some insanity or malignancy or...
Yeah. The aspect of the Dark Heresy from the perspective that you develop insanity points and corruption points for the choices that you make is a really interesting concept, and it does make for an interesting game, particularly when you start rolling for the effects of such.
Playing games. Now you're playing again, has it changed any of the way you feel in yourself? You've always been gaming and stuff anyway, but it's important not to let yourself get old, or you actually become old, don't you? It's it is a slow process, but you can look back on how you were and how you play games in your younger days. But have I changed? I guess we all change over time, but it's a subtle change, and you become more experienced. It is just like a role-playing game. You become more experienced in your own life than. And you would do things differently as you gain more experience than you would if you were a noob. So gaming is for life, guys. Just because you get older and responsibilities come along doesn't mean you have to stop your gaming. Just means that because you're older and wiser, you can now play your character in a different way.
Definitely. Yeah. As an aside, I'm a member of a clan, and some of the members of that are over 70.
Okay.
And it's not like. It's not a role-playing clan. It is a first-person shooter clan, and they're well up there in the tree. They can play just as well as the young guys.
Cool.
So there's no boundary to gaming and age. There's no ageism.
Yeah.
Life's better with a hammer.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Get more hammers. Life is better with a hammer. So, thanks a lot for joining us, Craig, and sharing some of the intricate secrets of your character and your thoughts on role-playing.
You're welcome. Luckily, you're using a standard autocom with standard rounds, because the last session when you shot me, I don't think that would have been quite as pleasant to shrug off as it actually was.
Well, I veered the rest away. I've had a lot of training in the urinals, so...
There's no Cheerio in the bottom of the pan.
Also, from Ghostbusters, taught me not to cross the streams.
So, schoolboy antics.
I am the master of buyer's remorse. Believe me, I really am. I do it great. Basically, you know whatever is not going to be good for me because the thing I shell out the money for in the end is the mistake. I can change my mind as many times as I like, but it's like I'm caught in some sort of Darren Brown mind game where he tells you can change your mind.
But you can't.
I'm
But I'm actually telling you what you really want.
I'd prefer to just be told what to do. So it's not me